We had a recent conversation, myself and Greg Dybel, that I titled Christian Response to COVID. And Greg reminded all of us how Christians throughout the ages responded to various plagues, epidemics, and pandemics. And ever since the start of this latest pandemic, many others have also presented and written on this topic. For example, I found this article from the famous Gospel Coalition, and it talks about four lessons from church history, starting with the so called plague of Cyprian in the 3rd century. The Bishop Cyprian asked at the time, what credit is it to us Christians if we just help Christians? Anyone can do that. We have to help not just the household of faith, but everyone. Another bishop during this time recorded how most of our brother Christians showed unbounded love and loyalty, never sparing themselves and thinking only of one another. Many, in nursing and curing others, transferred their death to themselves and died in their place. Now, the death rate of this plague is believed by historians to have reached 5,000 people per day, and it lasted more than 10 years. As we go forward in 16th century, during another outbreak of the so-called Black Death plague in Europe, Martin Luther, the famous Protestant reformer, and his pregnant wife, a woman named Katharina, were said to have remained in the city to care for the sick at the time. Luther cited passages like Matthew 25, where Jesus says, I was sick and you did not visit me. According to this passage, we are bound to each other in such a way that no one may forsake the other in his distress, but is obliged to assist and help him as he himself would like to be helped. By the time the Black Death was over, it turned out to be, according again to historians, the most deadly pandemic in human history thus far. And they estimate that the Black Death killed 30 to 60% of the entire European population. In the city of London alone, it said that 1 out of 2 people died. Ahead, 19th century, during the cholera pandemic, the famous preacher Charles Spurgeon is said to have visited the dying, even his opponents. Looking back, he wrote this: that man in his lifetime had been wont to jeer at me in strong language. He had often denounced me as a hypocrite. Yet he was no sooner smitten by the darts of death than he sought my presence and counsel. If there ever be a time when the mind is sensitive, it is when death is abroad. Now, this pandemic lasted almost 2 decades. That's 20 plus years and killed millions of people. In an online presentation that was given last year by the distinguished professor of history, church history, Dr. Philip Jenkins, he observed this: we are almost returning to a historical normal for the church. Through human history, plagues and diseases and epidemics have been an absolutely normal feature of life. For those of us who have grown up in the last 100 years, this was something that happened in other eras, in other places. Normality has returned. The church has to deal with what has historically been its normal situation. So, my friends, I think it's time to get back to that Christian normal mindset, but this time reminding the world about the great gospel resurrection hope we will wake to from the sleep of death when the Son of Man, the Messiah Jesus, returns. I appeal to you to break the bonds of fear, especially the fear of death, which is typical of our fallen human state. Let's not let fear creep up on us and make us feel bad for feeling fearful. Or even worse, make you chastise others for feeling similar things. Instead, let's continue to remind one another of the words of the ancient prophets, like Isaiah. A day is coming when the people will sing this song in the land of Judah. We have a strong city because God Himself will defend its walls. It is time to awaken and sing for joy, you dwellers in the dust, as the glistening, radiant dew refreshes the earth, so the Lord will awaken those dwelling among the dead.